Captain Kim gripped the rail on the bridge of the Earth ship Horizon. The giant alien vessel hung in space before them, its sleek form stretching longer than 3 Earth cruisers combined. Lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that seemed almost alive. This was it, humanity's first official meeting with the Galactic Coalition. Kim had trained for 20 years for moments like this, but nothing truly prepared you for making history. The weight of Earth's future rested on this diplomatic mission. Ambassador Park entered the bridge, her steps quick but measured. Her formal uniform gleamed under the lights, medals of peace missions from Earth's unified nations displayed proudly on her chest. "Captain, the Coalition ship has extended docking protocols," said the communications officer. Kim nodded. "Proceed with approach." "Ambassador Park, are you ready?" Park ran her hands down her uniform, smoothing imaginary wrinkles. As ready as one can be when meeting advanced aliens for the first time. She lowered her voice. "Are your security teams prepared, Captain?" "Yes, Ambassador. Standard protocol. 10 personnel, kinetic rifles, and sidearms." Park frowned slightly. "The Coalition might view weapons as hostile. They invited us to their ship. They'll understand basic security measures," Kim replied, keeping his expression neutral despite his concerns. "Earth protocol is clear on this." The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly, Kim thought. Earth ships never connected this easily. The Coalition's technology was clearly far beyond their own. When the airlock doors opened, the humans met their first Coalition representative. Talon stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. 4 arms folded across a chest covered in what appeared to be living metal fabric. "Welcome aboard the Coalition vessel Harmony," Talon said in perfect English. "We are honored by Earth's acceptance of our invitation." As Kim's security team filed through the airlock behind them, Talon's large eyes widened. The aliens' gaze fixed on the rifles strapped to the soldiers' backs. "How quaint," Talon said, mandibles clicking in what the humans would later learn was amusement. "Your species still relies on projectile weapons." Kim felt a flash of embarrassment, quickly replaced by pride. "We found them reliable," he replied simply. "Of course," Talon said, gesturing with 2 of his 4 arms. "Please, follow me to the reception hall. The Coalition Council awaits." The corridors of the alien ship were vast, with ceilings that arched 20 feet above them. The walls themselves seemed alive, shifting colors that responded to movement. Kim noticed his security team maintaining proper formation despite their obvious wonder. The reception hall was filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Some floated in containment fields, others moved on multiple legs or tentacles, while some looked almost human except for strange colors or extra limbs. All wore or were embedded with technology that made Earth's finest equipment look like children's toys. Sergeant Lee leaned close to Kim. "Sir, I count at least 15 different species, all armed with energy weapons of some kind." Kim nodded. "Stay alert but friendly." Ambassador Park was already deep in conversation with a group of Coalition diplomats, her translator device working flawlessly. The reception seemed to be going well. Too well, Kim thought again. Years of military service had taught him that when things seemed perfect, trouble was usually hiding nearby. He was right. Exactly 37 minutes into the reception, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lights shifted from peaceful blues to urgent reds. "Security breach in Sector 7, announced a voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Coalition security forces, tall armored beings with 4 arms like Talon, rushed to form a protective circle around the diplomats. Energy weapons hummed to life in their hands. "What's happening?" Ambassador Park asked, her carefully practiced diplomatic calm cracking slightly. Talon's blue skin paled to almost white. "Impossible. The Crimson Path faction must have infiltrated our ship. They oppose all new species joining the Coalition." Before Talon could explain further, the massive doors at the far end of the reception hall exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in black armor their faces hidden behind masks that glowed red at the eye slits. "Death to the Coalition's expansion," one shouted in a language that translated harshly through the humans' devices. The attackers raised weapons that looked like twisted branches of metal. Beams of red energy lashed out, striking Coalition forces. But instead of falling, the Coalition security merely staggered back. "Energy shields," muttered Lee. "They're protected." The Coalition forces returned fire, their weapons releasing pulses of blue light. But something strange happened. The attackers were surrounded by shimmering bubbles that simply absorbed the energy attacks. "We're pinned down," shouted Talon as more energy blasts dissipated harmlessly against the attackers' defenses. "Our weapons have no effect on their shields." The attackers advanced, their confidence growing with each step. Coalition diplomats huddled behind their useless defenders. The attackers were now just 30 feet away, their weapons charging for what looked like a major blast. Without hesitation, Sergeant Lee raised his rifle and fired. The crack of the shot echoed strangely in the alien hall. The lead attacker staggered, a hole appearing in his chest armor. He looked down in what seemed like shock before collapsing. Lee fired again. A second attacker fell. Captain Kim drew his sidearm. "All security personnel, defensive formation. Protect the diplomats." The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, taking positions and firing their primitive weapons. Bullets tore through the energy shields as if they weren't there, dropping attackers with each shot. Within minutes, the attack was over. 15 attackers lay dead or wounded on the floor of the beautiful reception hall. Silence fell. The Coalition beings stared at the human soldiers, their expressions unreadable to human eyes, but their shock obvious in their stillness. Talon approached Captain Kim slowly, all four arms hanging limp at his sides. "Impossible," he whispered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "How did your projectiles penetrate those shields?" "Our most advanced weapons couldn't breach them." Kim holstered his weapon. "Simple physics. Your energy shields stop energy. Our bullets are just metal moving very fast." "But this technology." Talon gestured at the rifles. "It's so basic." "Sometimes," Kim said, "the old ways work just fine." Ambassador Park stepped forward, smoothing her uniform once more. "Perhaps Earth has more to offer the Coalition than you initially thought." The gathered aliens murmured among themselves, their translation devices creating a buzz of overlapping languages. Captain Kim watched them carefully, noting how they now looked at the human weapons with something new in their eyes. It wasn't fear, it was respect. The journey to the Coalition research station took 3 days. Captain Kim spent most of that time filing reports about the attack. The Coalition transport ship moved faster than any human vessel, making stars blur outside the viewports. "We're approaching Nexus Station," the pilot announced. Kim looked up from his tablet. Through the main window, he saw an enormous ring-shaped structure orbiting a swirling gas giant. The planet was purple and orange, with storms larger than Earth churning across its surface. The station itself gleamed like silver, with thousands of lights marking labs and living quarters. "It's beautiful," said Lieutenant Song, joining Kim at the viewport. "And well defended," Kim noted, pointing to the defense platforms positioned around the station. Each looked like a metal flower with petals that probably concealed weapons. Their transport docked with barely a shudder. When the doors opened, a small delegation waited for them. Most were aliens of various species, but standing at the front was a human woman in a white Coalition uniform. "Captain Kim, welcome to Nexus Station. I'm Dr. Hyun, Earth's scientific liaison to the Coalition." She extended her hand, which Kim shook firmly. "The Science Council is very eager to speak with you about the incident." "My team and I are at your disposal," Kim replied. Dr. Hyun led them through corridors filled with strange equipment and beings from dozens of worlds. Scientists in matching white uniforms worked at stations with holographic displays that floated in midair. This station houses over 5,000 researchers from 300 species, Dr. Hyun explained. "The finest scientific minds in this sector of the galaxy." They entered a large circular room where a group of aliens sat around a floating table. Some looked almost human, while others were utterly alien. One appeared to be a collection of glowing crystals in a containment field. "The Science Council," Dr. Hyun whispered to Kim. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms stood. "Captain Kim, we appreciate your willingness to assist our investigation. I am Chief Researcher Navi." Kim nodded respectfully. "We're happy to help understand what happened." "To be direct," Navi said, "your weapons shouldn't have worked against those shields." The alien's voice carried tones of both confusion and fascination. "The Crimson Path faction uses our most advanced defensive technology. Their shields dissipate energy attacks completely." Dr. Hyun stepped forward. "Their entire defensive paradigm is built around energy dissipation. Nothing in Coalition space should have penetrated those shields." "Except bullets," Lieutenant Song said quietly. "Yes," exclaimed a bulbous alien to Navy's right. "Physical projectiles, so simple yet so effective." Over the next several hours, Kim and his team watched as Coalition scientists carefully disassembled and analyzed their rifles and ammunition. They scanned, measured, and tested each component with instruments Kim didn't recognize. The aliens handled the weapons with what could only be described as reverence. "May I?" asked a 6-legged researcher, gesturing to a bullet. Sergeant Lee nodded, handing over a single round. The alien held it up to the light, examining it from all angles. "Remarkable. A simple metal casing containing explosive powder, which when ignited propels a metal projectile at high velocity. No guidance system, no energy matrix, no quantum entanglement. Just physics." "The Coalition abandoned physical projectiles centuries ago," Dr. Hyun explained as Kim watched the proceedings. "They considered it evolutionary progress to develop pure energy weapons, cleaner, more advanced, more civilized. They designed all their defensive systems accordingly." "You never considered someone might use old technology against you?" asked Kim. The room fell silent. Dr. Hyun translated Kim's question, and the aliens looked at each other uncomfortably. Why would anyone choose the inferior option? Navy finally asked, seeming genuinely puzzled. Kim exchanged glances with Sergeant Lee. "On Earth, we have a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it." Bullets still work very well for their purpose. That evening, the humans were given quarters in a section of the station adapted for Earth-like conditions. The rooms were comfortable but clearly designed with alien sensibilities. The beds were too large, the chairs at odd angles. Lieutenant Song knocked on Kim's door after dinner. "Enter," Kim called. Song stepped inside, looking around carefully before speaking. "Captain, don't you find it strange how interested they are in our outdated weapons? They're the most advanced civilization we've encountered, yet they're obsessing over bullets." Kim nodded slowly. "Something doesn't add up. These beings can travel between stars, create artificial gravity, and build stations larger than our biggest cities. Yet they're acting like our rifles are the most amazing technology they've ever seen. It's like they're desperate," Song said quietly. "I overheard 2 researchers talking. They used a word I couldn't translate. Voidwalkers or voidborn, something like that. They stopped when they saw me." Kim leaned back in his chair, thinking. "The Coalition has been very open about sharing their technology with us, but they've told us almost nothing about their history or their conflicts. What if this Crimson Path faction isn't their only problem?" Song suggested. "What if there's something else they're afraid of? Something their energy weapons can't stop?" "Start digging," Kim said after a moment. "Quietly. Use Dr. Hyun's access codes if you can. Find out what they're not telling us." "Yes, sir," Song replied. "But what if they catch me looking through their systems?" Kim smiled slightly. "Tell them you're researching cultural exchange opportunities. Be charming." Song nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Captain, if there is something out there that scares beings with this level of technology, then we need to know what we're getting into," Kim finished for her. Earth needs to know what we're really dealing with here. After Song left, Kim walked to the viewport in his room. The gas giant filled half the view, its storms moving in massive swirls of color. Somewhere out there in the vastness of space, he felt certain, was the real reason the Coalition had contacted Earth. And it had something to do with humanity's stubborn attachment to primitive but effective weapons. 3 days into their stay at Nexus Station, Lieutenant Song found Captain Kim during breakfast. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she carried herself with barely contained energy. "Captain, I need to speak with you. Privately," she whispered, glancing around the mess hall where Coalition scientists ate strange foods alongside the human delegation. Kim nodded, setting down his spoon. "Walk with me, Lieutenant." They moved through the curved corridors of the station, smiling politely at passing aliens. When they reached a quiet observation deck overlooking the purple gas giant, Song finally spoke. "I found something last night. Something big." "Go on," Kim said, keeping his voice casual as a floating drone passed by. "Not here." Song's eyes darted around the room. "There's a restricted data center on level 42. I found a way in. You need to see this yourself." 20 minutes later, they stood before a terminal in a dimly lit room filled with humming machines. The sign on the door had been in alien script, but the red color and universal lock symbol made its restricted nature clear. "How did you get access?" Kim asked as Song's fingers flew across the interface. "I modified my access card using Dr. Gun's credentials when she left it on a console yesterday. It'll only work for a few hours before the system flags it." She looked up, eyes serious. "Captain, you need to see this. I found references to something called the Voidborn in their classified archives." The screen flickered, showing grainy footage that appeared to be from a security camera. The timestamp, converted to Earth standard, showed a date roughly 20 years earlier. The footage showed a Coalition outpost similar to Nexus Station. Suddenly, dark shapes appeared, flowing like liquid shadows through the walls. Coalition soldiers fired energy weapons at the shapes, but the blasts seemed to be absorbed into the darkness. Wherever the shadows touched Coalition members, they simply dissolved. "What am I looking at?" Kim asked, his voice hushed. "The Voidborn." Song pulled up another file. According to these records, the Coalition encountered these beings 20 years ago on the far edge of their territory. An exploration team accidentally opened some kind of dimensional rift. "They look like shadows. Shadows that eat energy and dissolve matter," Song corrected. "The records say they spread across 3 systems in less than a month. The Coalition threw everything they had at them. Their most powerful energy weapons, their most advanced ships. Nothing worked. The Voidborn just absorbed the attacks and grew stronger." Kim watched as the footage showed an entire Coalition battleship being enveloped by darkness, its lights flickering out one by one. According to these records, they were nearly wiped out because their weapons had no effect. The only thing that saved them was sealing off the affected systems completely, abandoning millions of their people. "And they've been keeping this secret?" Kim asked, anger rising in his voice. "Wouldn't you? It's a complete failure of their technology. Their entire civilization is built around energy manipulation, and they met something that feeds on energy." Song pulled up another file. "But that's not all. Look at this." The screen showed a star chart with red markers spreading across it like an infection. "The quarantine is failing. Outbreaks have been detected in 3 new systems in the past year. They're desperate for a solution. Which is why they contacted Earth," Kim said slowly. "They saw our bullets work against the Crimson Path shields, and thought maybe they would work against the Voidborn too." Song finished. Kim stepped back from the terminal, his mind racing. "Does anyone else know about this?" "I don't think so. These files are deeply buried." Suddenly, the door slid open. Kim and Song turned, hands instinctively moving toward weapons they weren't carrying. Dr. Hyun stood in the doorway, her face grim. "I see you've discovered our shame," she said quietly, stepping inside and letting the door close behind her. I wondered how long it would take you. You knew we would look. Song asked. Of course, it's what I would have done. Dr. Hyun moved to the terminal, looking at the footage still playing. The Voidborn decimated our outer colonies. 12 billion lives lost. The worst defeat in Coalition history. Why keep it secret from us? Kim demanded. If you need our help. Pride, Dr. Hyun said simply. The Coalition has been the dominant power in this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. How could they admit to newly contacted Earth that they were helpless against this threat? That they needed humanity's primitive weapons? So the diplomatic mission, the technology sharing, Kim began. All real, but with an ulterior motive. We've been searching for species that might help us fight them. When your bullets penetrated those shields on the diplomatic vessel, the Coalition leaders saw hope for the first time in decades. Kim stared at the footage, watching the shadow creatures consume everything in their path. Why didn't you just ask us directly for help? Would your leaders have believed the threat without seeing it? Would they have committed Earth's resources to fighting shadows from another dimension? Dr. Hyun shook her head. The Coalition needed to establish relations first, to prove our good intentions. Before Kim could respond, a sudden alert flashed across all screens in the room. Red symbols pulsed urgently. What is that? Kim asked, tension rising in his chest. Dr. Hyun's face paled as she read the alien text. Coalition Outpost 7 is under attack. Unknown hostiles. All defenses failing. She turned to Kim, her professional composure cracking. It's them. The Voidborn have breached another quarantine zone. Where is Outpost 7? Song asked. 3 light years from here, Dr. Hyun replied, her hands moving quickly across the terminal. It's a research station studying ways to fight the Voidborn. The terminal now showed live footage from Outpost 7. Dark shapes moved through corridors, while Coalition defense forces fired uselessly. Their energy weapons seemed to make the shadows grow larger. We need to help them, Kim said firmly. With what? Your team has only 10 rifles. The station has over 500 personnel, Dr. Hyun countered. Then we need more weapons. Kim turned to her. Does the Coalition have manufacturing capabilities? Can you create physical projectile weapons based on our designs? Dr. Hyun's eyes widened. Yes, the fabrication labs could be reconfigured, but it would take time. Time those people don't have, Song said, pointing to the screen where more Coalition members were being consumed by darkness. Kim made his decision. Lieutenant, gather our team. Full combat gear. Dr. Hyun, we need a ship, the fastest one available. You're going there? Dr. Hyun asked incredulously. With 10 people against an unknown number of Voidborn. We're going to find out if our weapons work against these things, Kim said, already moving toward the door. And if they do, we're going to save as many of your people as we can. As they rushed from the room, Kim's mind was racing. Humanity had just learned they weren't alone in the universe, and now they were about to face an enemy that had nearly destroyed a civilization thousands of years more advanced than their own. And their greatest weapon might be the simple, reliable technology they had never abandoned. The Coalition ship, Swift Response, cut through space at speeds that made Captain Kim's stomach lurch. His team sat strapped into acceleration couches, checking and rechecking their weapons. 10 humans armed with rifles and pistols, heading toward a battle that had overwhelmed an advanced alien civilization. 5 minutes to arrival, announced the Coalition pilot, his 4 arms working multiple controls simultaneously. Kim looked at his team. Remember your training. Stay together. Short, controlled bursts. We don't know if our weapons will work, but it's the best chance these people have. Sir, Sergeant Lee asked, what exactly are we fighting? Something that eats energy and dissolves matter, Kim replied. Beyond that, I don't know. The truth was, no one knew. The Coalition's data on the Voidborn was incomplete. They had been too busy running to study the enemy properly. 3 minutes, called the pilot. Lieutenant Song moved to sit beside Kim. "I never thought when we left Earth we'd be facing interdimensional shadows." Kim checked his pistol one last time. First contact scenarios never cover the really interesting stuff. A thin smile crossed Song's face. "At least we'll make history. First humans to fight aliens." "Let's aim for first humans to defeat aliens," Kim replied. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder. Through the viewport, they saw Outpost 7, a spinning, wheel-shaped station orbiting a desolate moon. Parts of the station were dark, while emergency lights flashed in others. "Energy signatures inside consistent with void-borne activity," reported the pilot, his voice tense. "Coalition defenders are falling back to central sectors. Dock us as close as possible to their position," Kim ordered. "Captain," Dr. Hyun called from her communication station, "I've informed the station commander of our arrival. They're skeptical about your assistance." "They won't be for long," Kim said. The docking was rough, the pilot struggling to connect with the station in chaos. When the airlock opened, Kim led his team into hell. The station corridor was dimly lit by emergency lights. Bodies of Coalition personnel lay scattered on the floor, some whole, others partially dissolved into gray dust. The distant sound of energy weapons and screams echoed from deeper in the station. "Life signs ahead," reported the Coalition scanner operator who had joined them. 200 meters, large concentration of personnel. "Move out," Kim ordered. They advanced through the station, passing abandoned labs and living quarters. Signs of struggle were everywhere. Blast marks on walls, overturned furniture, dropped tools. They rounded a corner and saw their first Voidborn. It floated 3 feet off the ground. A rippling darkness shaped vaguely like a human but constantly shifting. Where it touched the wall, metal simply dissolved away. "Hold," Kim whispered, raising his hand. The creature hadn't noticed them yet. It seemed to be absorbing a power conduit, tendrils of darkness wrapped around exposed wiring. Kim raised his rifle, aimed carefully, and fired. The crack of the bullet was deafening in the enclosed space. The round struck the Voidborn dead center. The creature convulsed, a high-pitched wail emanating from it as a hole appeared in its shadowy form. It tried to reshape itself, but before it could, Kim fired twice more. The Voidborn collapsed into a puddle of dark liquid that quickly evaporated. "It worked," Song whispered. "Move," Kim ordered, new confidence in his voice. They pushed deeper into the station, encountering more Voidborn. Each time, their bullets proved effective, tearing through the shadow creatures that had so easily defeated the Coalition's advanced weapons. Finally, they reached a large chamber where 50 Coalition personnel had barricaded themselves. Energy barriers, useless against the Voidborn, but still in place out of desperation, shimmered across doorways. Behind them, Coalition soldiers fired continuously at a wave of darkness pressing against the barriers. "They're coming through," shouted a Coalition officer. The Voidborn were indeed passing through the energy barriers as if they weren't there, feeding on the power and growing larger. "Conventional formation," Kim ordered his team. "Controlled bursts." The humans spread out in a line, raised their weapons, and opened fire. The sound of gunfire, a sound not heard in Coalition space for centuries, echoed through the station. The Voidborn shrieked as bullets tore through them. Their shadowy forms convulsed and collapsed wherever the humans directed their fire. The Coalition defenders watched in stunned silence as the humans advanced methodically, driving the Voidborn back room by room, corridor by corridor. "They're retreating," called Sergeant Lee as the shadows began to pull back from the human advance. For 3 hours, Kim's team hunted Voidborn throughout the station. Wherever they advanced, the shadows retreated. By the time the operation was complete, they had eliminated over 30 of the creatures without a single human casualty. In the station's command center, Kim's team collapsed into chairs, exhausted but triumphant. Coalition medical teams treated the wounded while engineers worked to restore power to damaged sections. A tall Coalition officer approached Kim. His uniform, decorated with symbols Kim didn't recognize, marked him as high-ranking. "I am Admiral Romy," he said through his translator, "commander of coalition forces in this sector." He looked at the humans with 4 wide eyes. "In all my cycles, I've never seen anything damage a Voidborn. How is this possible?" Sergeant Lee, cleaning his rifle nearby, looked up. "Simple physics, Admiral. Your energy weapons gave them something to feed on. Our bullets are just matter in motion, nothing to absorb, just kinetic force to tear them apart." The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Kim had learned indicated deep thought among his species. "Your species' technological conservatism," the Admiral mused, "keeping reliable old technologies while developing new ones. We considered it primitive. Now I see it was wisdom." Kim stood, wincing at his sore muscles. "Admiral, this was just one outpost. How widespread is the Voidborn threat?" Admiral Romy's expression darkened. 6 outposts have reported breaches in the past standard month. After centuries of containment, the Voidborn are spreading again. He looked directly at Kim. "Captain, you and your team have proven that human weapons are effective against our greatest enemy. I must ask, would Earth consider a larger military alliance?" "That would be for our leaders to decide," Kim replied carefully. "But first, we need to understand exactly what we're fighting and how they can be permanently stopped." "Of course," the Admiral agreed. "We will share all our research." As coalition personnel worked around them, Kim gathered his team for a brief moment of privacy. "What do you think?" he asked Song and Lee. "Can we trust them now?" "They're desperate," Song said, "and we've just shown them we have what they need." "Exactly," Kim said, "which puts Earth in a position of strength. For a species just entering the galactic community, that's not a bad place to be." Lee nodded toward the coalition workers. "Look at how they're watching us now. Not with amusement, with respect." Kim looked around the room. The Admiral was right. Humanity's primitive approach to technology had just saved an advanced alien outpost. What other forgotten technologies might prove valuable against this threat? For the first time since meeting the coalition, Captain Kim felt Earth had found its place among the stars. 6 months after the battle at Outpost 7, Captain Kim stood in the vast Grand Council chamber on the coalition homeworld of Nexus Prime. The circular room stretched nearly half a mile across, with seating for representatives from thousands of worlds. Today, every seat was filled. The occasion was historic, the signing of the Earth Coalition Defense Pact. Ambassador Park stood at the central podium, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. Earth's leaders stood behind her, their faces solemn as they prepared to commit humanity to a war beyond their solar system. "With this agreement," Park said, "Earth pledges its knowledge, its soldiers, and its resolve to stand with the Coalition against the Voidborn threat." The Coalition's supreme leader, a tall crystalline being whose body refracted light in mesmerizing patterns, stepped forward. His voice resonated with harmonics that made the air vibrate. "For 10,000 years, the Coalition has led this galaxy in technology, exploration, and culture," he began. "Today, we recognize that our path has led us to a dangerous place." The Supreme Leader's crystal form changed color from blue to a humble purple. "We evolved past physical weapons, considering them barbaric relics," he explained, gesturing to the human delegation. "In doing so, we created our own vulnerability. Your species kept what worked alongside what was new, a balance we failed to maintain." As the treaty was signed, Kim felt the weight of the moment. Humanity, barely spacefaring compared to the Coalition, had suddenly become essential to the galaxy's survival. Not because of advanced technology, but because of old technology they had never abandoned. 2 weeks later, Kim walked through Earth's new unified defense facility in what had once been the Australian outback. The facility stretched for miles, a sprawling complex of laboratories, factories, and training grounds where humans and aliens worked side by side. In one massive building, Coalition engineers with multiple limbs worked alongside human weapons designers. Their task: creating a new generation of weapons combining human ballistic principles with alien materials. Captain Kim, called a familiar voice. Kim turned to see Dr. Hyun, now Earth's chief scientific liaison. "Doctor, how is the prototype coming along?" Dr. Hyun led him to a testing area where a rifle-like weapon sat on a display stand. Its design was clearly human-inspired, but it gleamed with materials no Earth factory could produce. Coalition alloys make it 5 times lighter than steel, but 10 times stronger, she explained. The firing mechanism uses human design principles, but Coalition power cells eliminate the need for gunpowder. "Does it work?" Kim asked simply. Dr. Hyun smiled. "See for yourself." She picked up the weapon and aimed at a target designed to simulate a Voidborn's physical properties. When she pulled the trigger, a solid projectile, not an energy beam, shot out at incredible speed. The target disintegrated completely. "Mass production begins next week," Dr. Hyun said. "Every Coalition ship will carry these within 3 months." Outside, in the harsh desert sun, Kim found something even more remarkable. On a long firing range, human soldiers were training Coalition personnel in the use of basic rifles. The aliens, some with 4 arms, some with tentacles, some floating in environmental suits, struggled with the unfamiliar weapons. Captain Kim watched as his soldiers patiently showed Coalition forces how to hold rifles, how to aim, how to control their breathing. The once mighty aliens awkwardly held weapons, learning lessons humanity had preserved for millennia. "It's quite a sight, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Kim turned to see Admiral Park, formerly Ambassador Park, now promoted to oversee Earth's new defense initiatives. "It's ironic," she continued as they watched. "They traveled between stars while we were still burning coal, yet our primitive approach to technology is saving them." A 4-armed alien dropped his rifle and apologized profusely to his human instructor, who simply picked it up and demonstrated the proper grip again. Kim nodded. Maybe true advancement isn't about discarding the old for the new. It's about remembering where you came from while embracing where you're going. In the distance, a Coalition soldier successfully hit a target for the first time, earning cheers from his human instructors. "The Voidborn breached another system last week," Admiral Park said, her voice lower. "But this time, the Coalition Defense Force was armed with prototype weapons based on our designs. No casualties reported. The breach was contained within hours." Kim felt a surge of pride. "So it's working. Better than anyone expected." The Coalition's Grand Strategic AI predicts we can reclaim their lost territories within 5 years if deployment continues at the current pace. A shuttle passed overhead, carrying Coalition dignitaries to another meeting. The ship moved silently, using technology humans would have considered magical just a year ago. "They've already begun incorporating our approach into other areas," Park continued. "Coalition engineers are exploring mechanical backups for critical systems, physical locks alongside energy barriers, simple solutions they had long abandoned." "And what are we getting in return?" Kim asked. Park smiled. "Besides faster-than-light travel, advanced medicine, and access to resources from 1,000 worlds, they're teaching us balance too. Our tendency to cling to tradition sometimes holds us back. Together, we're finding the middle path." As the sun began to set, painting the desert in gold and red, Kim watched the training continue. Humans and aliens working together, each bringing their unique perspective and history. The galaxy was changing. Humanity's supposed technological stubbornness had become its greatest contribution to galactic survival. Not because the old ways were better than the new, but because true wisdom lay in knowing when each had value. In the growing darkness, the firing range lit up with muzzle flashes as a new generation of defenders prepared for a war against the shadows, a war they now had the tools to win.